Hey everyone, it's Saturday the 31st of May and it's 6:30 in the evening. Now in this video I'm going to talk about some specific computer components, and this was requested by Kat over at The Adventures of a Norfolk Kitten. I think she wants to try and understand things a bit more. It can be quite complicated. Now I'm not the best at explaining things, so I will do my best. And I think we will start with processors. I can go on, well, there's not a lot to say about motherboards. I can try and explain sort of how they work and what their specific job is and whatnot. But anyway, we'll start with the processors. So your processor, it does exactly what it says on the tin. You know, it processes all the information that goes through the computer. Every time you watch a video on YouTube or TikTok or Facebook Reels, every time you open up a Facebook page, run a program on your computer, play a game, it's all processed through the processor, hence the name. You know, and many years ago, processors only had what they called one core, only a single core device. So it's just that one core that did all the processing that the computer could do. Although over the years, well, ever since such things were first invented, they've got faster and faster and faster, and even today they have multi-cores. Don't just have one anymore, and there's hyper-threading as well. I don't know if I've actually got any hyper-threaded processors in my collection. Anywho, they obviously come with various numbers, usually in gigahertz. You get the model name for it, and then the speed of that processor in gigahertz. And sometimes it will tell you on the processor how many cores it's got. Because I can remember way back when dual cores first came out, you know, doubling the speed of a computer, you know, 2 cores doing the processing. And of course you had 4 cores, 6 cores, you can get 8 and possibly even more. I'm not actually sure what we've got up to, I haven't kept track. But I know that at least one of my AMD systems has got 6 cores. I think my Ryzen has. I think so is that one down there, even though it's not a Ryzen. So yeah, obviously the more cores a processor has, the quicker it's going to be for, well, doing all the tasks on your computer. The quicker the computer can respond, the quicker the program can respond and whatnot. The processors also have what they call the clock speed. Same as RAM, but we'll get to that next. And that's usually measured, well, it used to be megahertz years ago. And of course nowadays it's gigahertz. So, you know, I can remember when processors, single core processors that is, like your Pentium 4s, were like 2 gigahertz, and they was deemed as pretty quick back then. But nowadays you can get 3, I think my Ryzen is close to 4 gigahertz. I can't remember without looking it up. And there's literally hundreds of processors, and there's 2 main leaders, at least for desktop computers and laptops, and that is AMD and Intel. And for things like your mobile phones and your tablets, they will very often use what they call an ARM processor, ARM, and I cannot remember off the top of my head what that stands for. But you know, they all do the same task. And it's just that some will do it better than others. And I don't really have a preference between Intel or AMD myself. I've used both over the years, and I have come across crap processors from both, you know, over the years. So I've come across good ones over the years. So I'm really not fussed. As long as it is good and it does the job and it's working good enough for me, that's all I ask for. So yeah, in the case of a processor, at least when it comes to the gigahertz, bigger is technically better, and the more cores is better, so the bigger the number there is better. And the only problem is, motherboards, they're only designed to take specific processors and up to a specific clock speed. Because the sockets, as they call them, got lovely AMD as an example here. You're not going to get an Intel processor in an AMD socket. And, you know, this specific motherboard, I'd have to Google the model number of it to find out. But this specific model, just like any other motherboard, will only be able to accept certain processors, which I call families. What do you call it? A family of processors. I don't think it's actually as much down to the the physical side of it as it is the BIOS. What the BIOS can actually accept. I just realised, because this is the board I got out of that £20 computer. Got a bit of tape stuck over the DVI socket. We'll come back to motherboards. Anyway, I think I can't think of anything else to add with processors. We'll move on to a RAM. Now again, that's changed a lot over the years. I mean, I've got this really old stuff that you would probably find in something like a Windows 3.1 computer and whatnot, and some Windows 95, and I can't remember what they call this particular RAM. Then you get your SD RAM. Which, if you remember, that's what a lot of Windows 98 machines had. And even some Windows XP machines. Characterised, that's my wrong drawer. I've got them in here, haven't I? Is that one? Yeah. So your SD or your SODIMMs, they have two little notches. So it's impossible to put these into a modern motherboard. It's not going to work. And again, they have different clock speeds. Let's try to see what this one is. This is going to be in the megahertz range, not the up near gigahertz, and it doesn't actually say. It's got SD RAM, oh, it's 100 megahertz, 64 megabytes. Now the job of RAM, well, most programs on your computer or apps, I'm showing my age there, I'm calling them programs, they need RAM in order to function, because they need to store data temporarily, which is what happens to that. It only stores the data it needs while it needs it. So of course, the more megabytes, or in today's case the more gigabytes you have, the more space you have basically to run programs, which means you can multitask a lot better and faster. I mean, nowadays, the RAM that I couldn't get to work on my PC, the RAM that was in it originally that decided to stop working in that video, that's 3000 megahertz, which is 3 gigahertz. So we're well into the gigahertz for RAM now. Which, as I said, it's the clock speed, just like your processor. What that basically means is how fast they can transfer that data. So the bigger the number, you know, of your gigahertz in this case, the faster it's going to transfer that data. So your processor does all the processing, your RAM just sits there as and when it needs it. Like, for example, if you're running like an art program, it will have a load of that data temporarily stored in the RAM while that program is in use, and as soon as you close it, it's not using it anymore. We get different types. We've got the, as I said, the I think this has actually got SD RAM written on it. We then went to DDR RAM, which I believe is double data rate, which is faster than this. And you're sort of going into like 400 megahertz and whatnot, so it's a lot faster than the SD RAM. Then you had DDR2, which was even quicker, and then DDR3, DDR4, and even DDR5 now. We had GDDR5 for graphics. I believe it actually came first before we got it for doohickey RAM. And then I've noticed there is different types of RAM for things like servers, because I believe I've got some here because it will not fit any of the motherboards I've got. And it's definitely not DDR5 RAM. Where did I put the magnifying glass? There it is. It's made by Samsung. It's got 1 GB 2RX8 PC2 written on it. I should actually Google. I'm going to keep that one to one side so I can actually Google it and try and find out some info on it. I mean, like I was saying a minute ago, my old RAM from my PC, which quit working for some reason, every time I touch it, it just got so temperamental in that PC. That's one of the reasons I actually changed it. The stuff I got from, or the ones I got from my brother actually work better, so they're less temperamental. I thought it was the motherboard, but obviously it wasn't, it's the RAM. Anyway, they're 3 gigahertz, 3000 megahertz. That's pretty damn quick. You know, especially compared to that 100 megahertz one, 3000 megahertz, 100. That's a huge difference. But yeah, both are equally important to the computer, as is the motherboard, the heart of the computer. I'm guessing it's so cool because everything plugs into it. You know, it's where your RAM goes, it's where your processor goes. Any GPUs or any expansion cards you fit, they plug into the motherboard. You know, all your peripherals that plug into the back there, your audio, your Ethernet, USB, screen, if you haven't got a GPU, you'd use the onboard. All plugs into the board. What else? Your front USBs, your hard drives and other drives, they all plug into the board. We've got front USB there, still got a COM port there, fan header for a case fan. Audio is hiding up here by the audio sockets actually, that makes sense. Some motherboards put the audio down here, same sort of in line with your audio sockets, but down here for some reason. I guess they do it so it's in line with all the other expansion headers and whatnot. On-off charge. Huh? I'm going to do what that is. I don't even know what process is in this. I didn't think to power it up to have a look. ERP ready, I have no idea what that is either. AM3 is the socket. Yeah, every different processor socket, by the way, has a different model name, so that's an AM3. Which is actually handy to know, and it's handy, they don't always print it on the motherboard either. But it's handy when they do, because that means I could now go on the Googles, type AM3 plus in there, and it will actually tell me the type of processors that will fit that socket. Not all of them will be compatible with this socket though. So you'd have to Google the model number of the motherboard, which is a Gigabyte dual BIOS on this. It's a GA78LMT-52P or S2P. S2P. So if you actually just type that into Google, you can find the motherboard and get the full specs of it. And then you will know exactly what RAM, because even with RAM on motherboards, most of them can only accept certain bus speeds. So for example, it might accept a 3000 megahertz max, and anything above that it won't accept, it just won't work. So there's other things to look for. It's not a case of just going on like eBay or AliExpress, Temu or whatever website you like to go to. I think Newegg still exists. CEX, Vinted, you know, and just buying the first sort of RAM you find. You've got to check your motherboard and make sure that what you've got your eyes on will actually work with it. That's pretty much why the numbers are important. Now, that brings us to GPUs, which has been the hot topic recently because I've got quite a few laying around in the kitchen. I've got the other Sapphire Nitro in here, only because the other ones won't fit. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 currently laying around on the worktop. And I do believe, apart from one and my old one there, they're all 4GB ones. So, video cards. Now this actually confused a friend of mine earlier, which actually reminded me to do this video. So in the previous video I swapped my GTX 980 for a Sapphire Nitro R9 390, which model number wise it's got the smaller model number, you know, that's a 980, what I've got here, on GTX 980 Ti. And that one's a 390, except this one's got 6GB of GDDR5, whereas the one I've just installed has got 8. It's got 2 more gigabytes. With video games, I'm presuming it works in a similar way to like your standard RAM on the motherboard, you know, the game will put temporary information within that video RAM, as they call it. So the more some games require quite a lot just to render and generate all the special effects and whatnot. Because sometimes, I didn't know this until recently, but something as simple as fire and water can actually be quite taxing on a GPU just to create it. Throat was getting a bit scratchy. Forgot I had a drink. But a friend of mine was a bit confused because I'm changing his GPU for this one. But he's currently got a NVIDIA GT 1030 Ti, I believe it is. It's either GT or GTX, I can't quite remember. But he was like, well, how is your one better than mine? Because my one's got the bigger model number on it, a 1030. I thought, that is actually a valid question. You know, he's saying he felt dumb after I'd explained it to him, but I think with those that don't know, that would be a valid question. Because when it comes to RAM and your processor, the bigger the number, the better, you know, the faster it is. It doesn't seem to work that way, at least with the model numbers, with GPUs. And I think it might have something to do with the manufacturer, because this one's an EVGA. You know, and that's a 980 with 6GB of RAM. I've got a Palette 1060, my backup rig here, which has got the same RAM on it as this one, but 2 different model numbers. It's got the bigger model number. How? You know, so, well, I understand how, but why? That's the word I was looking for. Why, not how. I mean, I suppose to those that aren't that savvy with computers, you know, that is going to confuse them. So, I mean, it confused me for a bit as well, because when I was Googling the 1030, it kept coming up with 2GB GPUs, and I'm like, well, I'm sure that's not what I put on his computer. I'm sure that's a 4GB. So he actually ran CPU ID for me and took a screenshot of it, and yep, it's a 4GB card. But weirdly, yep, that is the better card. It's actually twice the size as well. But I'm going to take this apart at some point. I'm going to take the shield off if I can, just so I can get under there and get that dust out. And the same with this fan. I've noticed it's a bit clogged. Part of me wants to actually keep it, but at the same time I don't need it. I mean, spec wise, almost that's identical. Processor is a different type. This is an Intel i7 on here, and the RAM is actually DDR3, not DDR4, whereas my main rig's DDR4. But yeah. And I've got the Corsair CX600 PSU that I've mounted in this one. I've still got RAM slots up there. I could upgrade that RAM. In fact, I want to max it out. I don't know why, but when I build a computer, I do like to try and max everything out. I still can't believe that 1060 was free. I've even got Wi-Fi on this. So literally, if my main computer literally just blew up one day for whatever reason, this is literally just a straight swap. I could still use this and continue with whatever games and whatnot I was playing with, which was the whole idea of me building this. Not many people actually build a spare computer, they just fix it when it goes wrong. You know, and then they're offline. I mean, I don't really need it. For what to get online, I've got 2 decent laptops that I could use just to get online, you know, just check Facebook and emails and eBay and watch YouTube videos and whatnot. So I don't really need it. I built it because I had the parts and because I wanted to. So, yeah. You know, a lot of the time I don't do things because I need to, I just do it because I want to. That's the simple answer to everything. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's also different slots for these as well on the motherboard. I've only got one at hand here, unfortunately. Go back to our gigabyte board here. So this one, with your little section at the front here, see it? Got a little divider there. That's a PCIe, PCI Express. That's standard PCI, and that's like a mini PCI. So yeah, older video cards not going to go on there because you get AGP as well, and you can get some. Yep. I find they're quite rare to find, and I've got one. You get AGP GPUs as no, not AGP, PCI GPUs as well. Which I actually do have one of them. Because they're rare, that's the reason I won't part with it. I don't actually have any AGP GPUs now. I have to see if I can find some. The problem is, you know, they're quite rare now, and with people that like to retro game and whatnot, they can still go for a decent sum. Although I've been looking on eBay and they're not that expensive to buy individually. If you're just looking for one for a project, it's sort of 20-30 quid depending on what it is. Hey Smudgy. But I was more looking for like a little job lot for a decent price. So I've got spares. Because I would actually like to do what a friend of mine did, or what I did for a friend of mine I should say, and build an earlier, I was going to say more closer to an XP rig, because my other one, or my XP build, has got PCIe on it, not AGP. But I'd like to go for an earlier XP build with an AGP, but I haven't got any AGP GPUs anymore. But you can still get them, buy the plenty actually on eBay. Now if you are looking for PC parts and you want to pay a fair price, because I know eBay, some of the sellers on there ask silly money for just about anything they're selling, not just PC parts. I've seen some die-cast, for example, listed up there at ridiculous amounts, and Lego, and you know, they always try their luck, even on Marketplace. But my little brother got me into Vinted recently. I was just scrolling through various PC parts one evening. I just couldn't believe how reasonably priced so much of it was. RAM, processors, motherboards, you name it. Full systems. I don't think a lot of people think of using Vinted, because I remember when it first started, I don't know how many years ago now, it was primarily to sell clothes. Just clothes that you didn't want anymore, you know. You've got a shirt that no longer fits but is in good condition, you could have chucked it on Vinted for a few quid and got a few quid for it. So, but it seems it's expanded over the years and you can now sell all sorts. I think it's about time for me to head to Sainsbury's and get some groceries. I've been putting off all day. What to go in the evenings because it's quiet. But then we're going to have an early night tonight. And take a ride over to my mum's fairly early because I want to get as much done there as possible. I'll be taking this. I'm going to put the 2 videos that I've got on this camera now and put on the computer so they're safe. So I don't accidentally delete them because I've done that before. Quickly, before I shut it off, if, like myself and Kat, you like to put LEDs and whatnot inside your PC, get a set of these. I've got 2 spools of these. They're 3 metre spools, so there's 3 metres of LED tape on there. It's self-adhesive and it just plugs into a USB. And it's got a button on there so you can turn them off and select a few different modes. So I've got this out because I'm going to put it in this one. Because I've already got that neon tube thing in the other one. Yeah, I've sort of gone old school with the other machine, but yeah, you can get LED tape like that. You could, if you know how to solder, you could just buy ordinary LED tape, because this can be cut. Because that's what I've done to that, I've already cut it. So you just solder a couple of wires onto those pads, and I think, as each one of these has a resistor, each one of these LEDs, I don't think you'd have to add one. You could just run it straight from the 5 volts on a computer. So you could get fancy and just cut a USB cable in half and then wire the positive and negative onto here and then just plug it into a USB and use it that way. I'm going to run an experiment. I'm going to cut a few of these off of here, like that much, and solder. I've got plenty of USB cables I could sacrifice, so I was just going to solder 2 wires on there and then plug it in, see if it goes pop. If it does, then I know you've got to put a resistor in it. It will if you wire it to the 12 volt power supply. It's got to be on the 5 volt. Or I suppose you could do it on a 3.3 volt if you could find one somewhere. Well, I was actually hoping I could put a USB card in here to give me an internal USB, because a lot of the expansion USB cards, they have one on the inside for some reason. But this is going to have to go through one of the vent holes and then just plug in one of the other USBs. Not a bad thing actually, because then I can just press the button, turn them on and off as and when I want. But obviously that other spool, they're not going to flash or have the flash patterns, because that's what that bit is for. That's all that circuitry is. So the other ones would just be steady. Unless you can find, like on, I don't know, AliExpress or something, a little circuit like that you could use. Probably. You can get just about everything electronic off of AliExpress. Not all of it is good though. Right, I've been babbling for half an hour, so I'm going to shut the video down here. So I hope you found this interesting and maybe useful. If you have any questions though, leave them in the comments and I'll do my very best to answer them. Why does my brain always freeze when I get to this part of the video? Oh yeah, like the video if you liked it. If you disliked it, dislike it. And if you want to see more videos like this one, or maybe you're into the die-cast models, or Lego, or bicycles, or you know, whatever, I've got umpteen different hobbies and interests, consider hitting the subscribe button. It's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. Or as I hear many Americans say, it doesn't cost you a dime. Which I believe is 50 cents. And a quarter is 25 cents, because 4 quarters make up $1. So that would make sense to me. Yeah, I think a dime is 50 cents, isn't it? If there's any American viewers that have made it this far in the video, please drop a comment and correct me if I've got it wrong. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. I'm scratching my leg. Oh, I've got a flea bite or something. Bug bite. Heat rash. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.